Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we've got another installment of my audiobook series. We're in season 12, and today we have chapter 3 of the 15 invaluable laws of growth. On the docket today is the law of the mirror. You must see value in yourself to add value to yourself. Enjoy. This video is part of an audiobook series featuring the 15 invaluable laws of growth. Live them and reach your full potential. Written by John C. Maxwell in 2012. For more audiobooks, please visit my YouTube channel, find me on Spotify, or check out my website for downloads. Chapter 3. The Law of the Mirror. You must see value in yourself to add value to yourself. And the chapter begins with a quote from Dennis Waitley. Quote, "Personal development is the belief that you are worth the effort, time, and energy needed to develop yourself," end quote. I often ask myself what keeps people from being successful. I believe all people have the seeds of success within them. All they need to do is cultivate those seeds, water them, feed them, and they will begin to grow. That is why I have spent my life trying to add value to people. I love to see people blossom. So why do many people fail to grow and reach their potential? I've concluded that one of the main reasons is low self-esteem. Many people don't believe in themselves. They don't see the possibilities that God put in them. They possess 100 acres of possibilities, yet never cultivate them because they are convinced that they won't be able to learn and grow and blossom into something wonderful. Potential squashed. That was the case of Janetta McSwain, whose story I recently learned about. For more than 30 years, she was someone who saw little value or potential in herself. But to be honest, there were many legitimate reasons for her poor perception of herself. She was born to a single mother who didn't want her and told her so. She and her sister Sonia, a year older, along with a cousin, spent the first 5 or 6 years of their lives being raised by their grandmother in Birmingham, Alabama. But the house was also shared by 3 uncles who abused all 3 of the children psychologically, physically, and sexually. Janetta was scarred both physically and emotionally. Quote, "By the time I was 5 years old," says Janetta, "I had already started to believe that I was not only inferior, but also a child abandoned by her own mama. As a child, I had no place, no voice, and no worth at all," end quote. When Janetta and Sonia's mother learned about the abuse, she moved the 3 girls to a new home, but the abuse continued, this time from the men her mother brought home. Sonia ultimately responded by living on the streets and turning to crack cocaine. Janetta avoided drugs, but she spent much of her time on the streets and dropped out of high school in the 11th grade. She had her first child out of wedlock at age 19, then a second child in her mid-20s. For the most part, she lived in government-supported housing and on government assistance and relied on her boyfriends for additional support. To keep herself in designer clothes, resorted to shoplifting. Sonia's perspective poignantly sums up the state they were in. Quote, "Everybody in my family has been in jail, on drugs, didn't finish high school, so what have I got to live for? What have I got to amount to? Nothing. What have I got to accomplish? Nothing," end quote. A look in the mirror. Janetta's 30th birthday caused her to look in the mirror, and she didn't like what she saw. She writes, quote, "That day I woke up and realized I had absolutely nothing to celebrate. No money, no full-time job, no home, no husband, and no clue, not even the will to do better. At last I knew it was time to make some changes," end quote. She wasn't happy with her life, and she realized that if she continued in the same direction she was going, her 2 sons would also be headed for trouble. As far as she knew, not a single male member of her family had ever finished high school. Many died young or ended up in jail, and she didn't want that for her boys. For Janetta, the process started with her working to get her GED, took a 12-week course to prepare, and then took the test. Needed a score of 45 to pass and received a 44.5. But she was determined to make something of herself, so she scheduled to retake at the first opportunity. When she passed, she was excited to be chosen to speak at the graduation ceremony. No one from her family bothered to attend. Janetta knew that if she was going to change, she needed to leave Birmingham and get a fresh start, and she wanted to do something no one in her college had ever done, or her family had ever done, go to college. She decided to move to Atlanta, Georgia, and was motivated by a profound thought that I get the chance to be anyone I want to be. It took her almost 3 years to pull it off, but she made the move. Soon after, she enrolled in Kennesaw State University, deciding to take more than a full load every semester. She was 33 years old when she started school. She was street smart, not very book smart, at least not at first. That intimidated her in the beginning, but for the first time in her life, she was determined to better herself. And soon, she realized she could do it. Janetta explains, quote, "I realized I didn't have to be smart. I just had to be determined, motivated, and focused. This came with a high price tag for me. I had to exchange my thinking. I had to think like a smart person." End quote. Not only did she study hard and stay focused, but she also sought out the smartest person in each of her classes and asked them to study together. Soon she was studying and thinking like the best students in the school. She also maintained the vision she had for her future. At the beginning of every semester, she went to the store on campus and tried on a cap and gown, looking at herself in the mirror and imagining what it would be like to graduate. One day when a classmate was talking to her, she had a realization. The classmate was saying, "I don't love myself, I'm a nobody." And Janetta responded, "You sure can love you if I love me." And that's when it hit her, maybe for the first time. I realized that I loved myself. She had changed. She was turning into the person she wanted to be, that she was created to be. Janetta completed the work for a bachelor's degree in 3 years, then enrolled in graduate school where she earned a master's in social work. Currently, she is working toward earning a doctorate. "I went for something that society told me you can't do," says Janetta, and said, "Oh yes, I can." The positive power of self-esteem. Janetta's story is a powerful example of what can happen in a person's life when she recognizes her value and begins to add value to herself. In Janetta's case, she was motivated by the desire to help her children, and she began to add value to herself first, and later saw the value in herself. It doesn't matter which occurs first. One feeds the other. What matters is that the cycle begins. If you don't realize that you have genuine value and that you are worth investing in, then you will never put in the time and the effort needed to grow your potential. If you're not sure you agree with that, then consider the following. Self-esteem is the single most significant key to a person's behavior. Often I have heard my friend Zig Ziglar say, quote, "It's impossible to consistently behave in a manner inconsistent with how we see ourselves. We can do very few things in a positive way if we feel negatively about ourselves." End quote. Zig has a very practical, common-sense wisdom that he has shared with people for years, but experts in the field agree with his assessment. Nathaniel Branden, a psychiatrist and expert on the subject of self-esteem, says, quote, "No factor is more important in people's psychological development and motivation than the value judgments they make about themselves. Every aspect of their lives is impacted by the way they see themselves." End quote. So if you believe that you are worthless, then you probably won't add value to yourself. Low self-esteem puts a ceiling on our potential. I'm well known for teaching the law of the lid from the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. Imagine that you want to do something great in your life that impacts a lot of people. Perhaps you want to build a great organization. That desire, no matter how great, will be limited by your leadership. It is a lid on your potential. Well, your self-esteem has the same kind of impact. If your desire is a 10, but your self-esteem is a 5, you'll never perform at the level of a 10. You'll continue to perform at a 5 or lower. People are never able to outperform their self-image. As Nathaniel Branden says, quote, "If you feel inadequate to face challenges, unworthy of love or respect, unentitled to happiness, and fear assertive thoughts, wants, or needs, if you lack basic self-trust, self-respect, and self-confidence, your self-esteem deficiency will limit you, no matter what other assets you possess." End quote. The value we place upon ourselves is usually the value others place upon us. A man went to a fortune teller to hear what she had to say about his future. She looked into a crystal ball and said, "You will be poor and unhappy until you are 45 years old." "Then what will happen?" asked the man hopefully, to which the reply, "Then you will get used to it." I'm sorry to say that's the way most people live their lives, according to what others believe about them. If the important people in their lives expect them to go nowhere, then that's what they expect for themselves. That's fine if you're surrounded people who believe in you, but what if you're not? You shouldn't become too concerned about what others might think of you. You should be more concerned about what you think of yourself, and that is what Janetta McSwain did. As she prepared for her move to Atlanta, her friends and family told her it would never happen. When she did move, they told her that she would fail and return to Birmingham. Nobody really believed in her, but she didn't care. She had her own solution. She says, "You don't have to accept what people say, you have to be." Isn't that wonderful? If you put a small value on yourself, rest assured the world will not raise the price. If you want to become the person you have the potential to be, you must believe that you can. Thanks, Disney. Steps to build your self-image. I must admit that self-image has never been a problem for me. I grew up in a very positive environment, and I've always believed that I could succeed. But I've worked with a lot of people who didn't, and I've been able to help some of them turn the corner and believe in themselves the way I believe in them. And I hope to be able to help you too, if that's your situation. To get you started, please take to heart the following 10 suggestions. Number 1, guard your self-talk. Whether you know it or not, you have a running conversation with yourself all the time. What is the nature of yours? Do you encourage yourself or do you criticize yourself? If you are positive, then you help to create a positive self-image. If you're negative, you undermine your self-worth. Where does negative critical self-talk come from? Usually from our upbringing. In their book, The Answer, businessmen authors John Azaraf and Murray Smith talk about the negative messages children receive growing up. They write, quote, "By the time you're 17 years old, you've probably heard the phrase, 'No, you can't,' an average of 150,000 times. You've probably heard the phrase, 'Yes, you can,' about 5,000 times. That's 30 no's for every yes. That makes for a powerful belief of 'I can't,'" end quote. That's a lot to overcome. It's one of the reasons it took Janetta McSwain 30 years to start believing she could change. From an early age, she had been made to feel valueless. If we want to change our lives, we have to change the way we think about ourselves. If we want to change the way we think about ourselves, we need to change the way we talk to ourselves. And the older we are, the more responsible we are for how we talk, think, and believe. Don't you have enough problems in life already? Why add to them by discouraging yourself every day with negative self-talk? When I was a child, my favorite story was The Little Engine That Could. Why? Because I found it so encouraging. I used to read it over and over, and I used to think, that's me. I think I can too. You need to learn to become your own encourager, your own cheerleader. Every time you do a good job, don't just let it pass. Give yourself a compliment. Every time you choose discipline over indulgence, don't tell yourself that you should have anyway. Recognize how much you are helping yourself. Every time you make a mistake, don't bring up everything that's wrong with yourself. Tell yourself that you're paying the price for growth and that you will learn to do better the next time. Every positive thing you can say to yourself will help. 2. Stop comparing yourself to others. When I started my career, I looked forward to the annual report from the organization showing statistics for each of its leaders. As soon as I received them in the mail, I'd look at my standing and compare my progress with the progress of all the other leaders. For about 5 years of doing that, I realized how harmful it was. What happens when you compare yourself to others? Usually it's one of two things. Either you perceive the other person to be far ahead of you and you feel discouraged, or you perceive yourself to be better than the other person and you become proud. Neither of those is good for you, and neither will help you to grow. Comparing yourself to others is really just a needless distraction. The only one you should compare yourself to is you. Your mission is to become better today than you were yesterday, and you do that by focusing on what you can do today to improve and grow. Do that enough, and if you look back and compare the you of weeks, months, or years ago to the you of today, you should be greatly encouraged by your progress. 3. Move beyond your limiting beliefs. I love the old comic strip Shoe by Jeff McNelly. In one of my favorites, Shoe is pitching in a baseball game. In a conference on the mound, his catcher says, "You gotta have faith in your curveball." Shoe grumbles, "It's easy for him to say. When it comes to believing in myself, I'm an agnostic." Unfortunately, that's the way a lot of people think about themselves. They don't believe that they can accomplish great things. But the greatest limitations people experience on their lives are usually the ones they impose upon themselves. As industrialist Charles Schwab once said, quote, "When a man has a limit on what he will do, he has a limit on what he can do," end quote. That was true for Janetta Swain. As soon as she changed her self-limiting thinking, she was able to change her life. Author Jack Canfield offers a solution to self-limiting thinking. In his book, The Success Principles, he recommends the following 4 steps to transform limiting beliefs into empowering beliefs. First, identify a limiting belief that you want to change. Then, determine how the belief limits you. Third, decide how you want to be, act, or feel. And then, create a turnaround statement that affirms or gives you permission to be, act, or feel this new way. That's really good advice. Once you do it, repeat that turnaround statement to yourself every day for as long as you must in order to change your self-limiting thinking. For example, let's say you would like to learn a foreign language or improve your career to better enjoy a vacation, but you don't think you can do it. Once you've identified that belief, define how not learning that language is limiting you. Then describe what it will be like to learn that language. How will it make you feel? What will it empower you to do? What might it do for your career? Then, write an empowering statement that affirms your ability to learn the language, outlines the realistic progress you will use to learn it, and describes how you will be impacted by this growth. Remember, in the end, it isn't what you are that holds you back. It's what you think that you're not. 4. Add value to others. Because people with low self-esteem often see themselves as inadequate or feel like victims, which often starts because they actually have been victimized in their past, they focus inordinately on themselves. They can become self-protective and selfish because they feel that they have to be to survive. If that is true of you, then you can combat those feelings by serving others and working to add value to them. Making a difference, even a small one, in the lives of others lifts one's self-esteem. It's hard to feel bad about yourself when you're doing something good for someone else. In addition to that, adding value to others makes them value you more. It creates a cycle of positive feeling from one person to the other. Number 5. Do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing. One of the best ways to build self-esteem is to do what's right. It gives a strong sense of satisfaction, and what happens whenever you don't do the right thing. Either you feel guilt, which makes you feel bad about yourself, or you lie to yourself to try to convince yourself that your actions weren't wrong or weren't that important. That does harm to you as a person and to your self-esteem. Being true to yourself and your values is a tremendous self-esteem builder. Every time you take action that builds your character, you become stronger as a person. The harder the task, the greater the character builder. You can actually act yourself into feeling good about yourself because positive character expands into every area of your life, giving you confidence and positive feelings about everything you do. 6. Practice a small discipline daily in a specific area of your life. When I began my career as a minister, one of the things I did was work a little bit every day on my Sunday sermon. As I talked to my peers, I found that this was not the way most people in my position did things. Most of my colleagues began their preparation on Friday. I couldn't understand why they would do it that way. It was like facing a mountain, overwhelming. However, I found that if I chipped away all week, by the time Friday came, I was confident that I could complete the task. If there is an area in your life that seems overwhelming to you, health, work, family, or something else, try chipping away at it a little bit every day, instead of trying to tackle it all at once. Since your self-worth is based on the positive habits, actions, and decisions you practice every day, why not build your self-esteem and tackle your biggest problems at the same time? Don't fret or worry about it. Do something specific about it. Discipline is a morale builder. Build yours by taking small steps that will take you in a positive direction. 7. Celebrate small victories. This next suggestion is really a follow-up to the previous ones. When you do the right thing or you take a small step in the right direction, what is your emotional response? What kind of things do you tell yourself? Are your thoughts like these? Well, it's about time. I didn't do as much as I should have. That won't make a difference. It's hopeless. I'll never succeed. Or are your thoughts more like these? It's good that I did that thing. I did the right thing. Good for me. Every little bit helps, and I'm that much closer to success. If your thinking runs more like the first list, then you need to change your thinking. I have to admit, I have no trouble celebrating small victories. Then again, I have no trouble celebrating big victories either. I just love celebrating, and you should too. Taking a break to celebrate is good for you. If nothing is ever good enough, you can lose heart. Celebrating encourages you. It helps to inspire you to keep going. Do not underestimate its power. 8. Embrace a positive vision for your life based on what you value. When Reese Witherspoon won the 2006 Oscar for Best Actress for her portrayal of June Carter Cash in Walk the Line, she quoted June Carter Cash, saying, quote, "People used to ask June how she was doing and she would say, 'I'm just trying to matter.' I know what she means," end quote. We all want our lives to matter. That's hard to do when we don't believe that we matter. If you have a positive vision for your life and you take action to fulfill that vision, then you will more readily recognize that your life matters. For example, Janetta McSwain loved and valued her children, and she had a positive vision for them, one where they prospered and broke the cycle of violence perpetuated by the men in her family. Because of that, she took action to fulfill the vision. What do you value? What prompts you to see a positive vision for your life? If you don't have a vision, you are likely to be apathetic. However, if you tap into what you value and try to see what you could be, it can inspire you to take positive action. And every positive action you take helps you to believe in yourself, which in turn helps you to take more positive action. 9. Practice the one-word strategy. A couple of years ago, I read a book by Kevin Hall called Aspire, which really inspired me. So much so that I wanted to meet the author, whom I found to be a delightful person. One of my favorite passages in the book communicates something Kevin does to help people grow. Quote, "The first thing I do when I'm coaching someone who aspires to stretch, grow, and go higher in life is to have that person select the one word that best describes him or her. Once that person does that, it's as if he or she has turned a page in a book and highlighted one word. Instead of seeing 300 different words on the page, the person's attention and intention is focused immediately on that single word, that single gift. What the individual focuses on expands." End quote. Why do I like this practice of picking one word? Because it tells you a lot about how you think about yourself. Try it. If you could pick only one word to describe yourself, what would it be? I hope it's positive. If it is, it will help you go in the right direction. But if it's not, then you need to change your word. 10. Take responsibility for your life. We tend to get in life what we are willing to tolerate. If we allow others to disrespect us, we get disrespected. If we tolerate abuse, we get abused. If we think it's okay to be overworked and underpaid, well then guess what will happen? If we don't have a plan and a purpose for our lives, we will become a part of someone else's. It's no mistake that Janetta McSwain's life turned around when she took responsibility for herself and where she was, and decided to get control of her life and make positive changes. Those changes were not easy, nor did they occur quickly. She had to dig herself out of a big hole, but she did. And so can you. I wish that I could sit down with you, hear your story, and encourage you specifically in your journey. If you've had a difficult time and you don't feel good about yourself, I want to tell you that you do have value. You matter. Your life can change and you can make a difference, no matter what kind of background you have or where you come from. No matter what traumas you've suffered or mistakes you've made, you can learn and grow. You can become the person you have the potential to be. You just need to believe in yourself to get started. And every time you take a step, think a positive thought, make a good choice, practice a small discipline, you are moving one step closer. Just keep moving forward and keep believing. Applying the law of the mirror to your life. 1. Make a list of all your best personal qualities. If you have positive self-esteem, then this will probably be easy for you. If you don't, it may be a struggle. Don't give up. If needed, spend days or weeks creating the list. Don't stop until you have written 100 positive things about yourself. If it took you a long time to create this list, then you need to spend time every day reading through it to remind yourself of your value. Remember, if you do not value yourself, you will have a very difficult time adding value to yourself. Use the list as a springboard and decide on one word that best describes you. Make this word your North Star as you begin adding value to yourself. 2. Few things impact a person's self-esteem more than the way they talk to themselves on a day-to-day basis. Are you aware of how you talk to yourself? Keep track by using your smartphone or carrying an index card so you can tally the number of times each day this week that you think something positive or negative about yourself. In addition, you can ask close friends or family members to tell you whether they think you see yourself in a favorable or unfavorable light. 3. If you want to feel valuable, add value to others. How much time every day and every week do you spend focusing on others and adding value to them? Do you serve others through a volunteer organization? Do you mentor people? Do you give assistance to others less fortunate than yourself? If you aren't doing so already, find a way to serve and add value to others on a weekly basis. Do something that utilizes your strengths, benefits others, and makes you feel good about yourself. Start small. If you're already serving, then do more. It's a good rule of thumb to give 1/10 of your time to serving and adding value to others. So, for example, if you work for 40 hours a week, devote 4 hours to serving others. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and visit my channel for more exciting content.